All right, let's talk about one of the biggest, most universal questions out there. Why is there suffering? Today, we're going to break down some really powerful ideas from a source that tackles this head on. So let's just dive right in.
I mean, it's a question we've all asked, right? It doesn't matter who you are or where you're from, when we're faced with pain or hardship or loss, that big question mark just hangs over everything. Why? Why does this have to happen?
And of course, the source we're looking at today knows this isn't some new, trendy question. This is a timeless puzzle. It's something people have grappled with for as long as we've been around, trying to make sense of the world.
Now, you've probably heard this one a million times. It's the go-to answer, right? That you can't have the light without the dark. And, there's some truth to it. But that answer can feel a little thin when things get really tough. So, we're going to dig a lot deeper than that today.
So where do we even begin? Well, the first big idea from our source is that the answer isn't necessarily out there in the world, it's actually inside our own minds. The argument is that our experience of suffering is almost completely shaped by our attitude.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this, think about someone like an Olympic athlete or a top performer. Think about the absolutely grueling training they put themselves through, the exhaustion, the aches, the pain. They choose to endure it day in and day out. And that, right there, is the key. It's the secret sauce. The pain becomes something different. It becomes tolerable, even meaningful, when it's connected to a purpose. That goal, whether it's winning a medal or just achieving a personal best, completely transforms the experience.
And this isn't just for super athletes. This applies to every single one of us. We've all seen it, right? Some people face incredible challenges with so much strength, while other people might crumble over something that seems small. So what makes the difference? It's not the suffering itself, it's the attitude we bring to the table. So this all leads to a kind of practical path, a path of mindful acceptance. And it's not about ignoring the pain. It's the opposite. First, you have to acknowledge the hardship, really see it for what it is. Then you prepare yourself for the challenge. You accept that this is your journey for now. And it's through that process that you end up discovering this incredible inner strength you probably never even knew you had.
But mindset is just one piece of the puzzle. For thousands of years, people have also looked to spiritual frameworks to understand suffering. So our source digs into two really big ones that try to explain the unseen forces at play.
And these two frameworks give us very different ways of looking at it. On one hand, you have the view that's often tied to a single lifetime. In this belief, suffering is part of God's plan, maybe a test of your faith. The path forward here is acceptance, which leads to peace. But then, on the other hand, there's the view rooted in multiple lifetimes. Here, suffering is seen as karma, the result of things you've done in the past. And the goal isn't just to accept it, but to face it head-on so you can learn and grow from it.
Okay, so whether you see it as a test of faith or a karmic lesson, that brings up the next obvious question. What are you supposed to do about it? How do these beliefs actually translate into a real path forward in your life?
For someone on a path of faith, the answer is all about devotion. The idea is to shift your focus away from yourself, so you engage in service. You try to find gratitude even in the tough moments, and you make an effort to see the divine in other people. It's all about cultivating an inner peace that lets you accept challenges as part of a much bigger plan.
Now, for those who come at this from a more philosophical or non-religious perspective, the path is more about understanding. It's about trying to see the deep interconnection of, everything. This philosophy, which is called Advaita Vedantam, suggests that nothing is random, and that finding your purpose within that grand, interconnected truth is what can bring you peace.
Let's unpack that for a second, because it's a pretty huge idea. Advaita Vedantam is what they call a non-dualistic philosophy. So think of it like this. Instead of a painter who is separate from the painting they create, this view says the painter is the painting. The creator and the creation aren't two different things. It's all one and the same interconnected reality. And when you see yourself as part of that whole system, your own personal struggles start to look very, very different.
Okay, so this all brings us to the big takeaway, the final piece of the puzzle. After we've looked at mindset and we've looked at these different belief systems, what's the actual fundamental purpose of suffering?
Well, what's so fascinating is that whether you come at it from a psychological, spiritual, or philosophical view, the conclusion is almost identical. The events in our lives aren't just random chaos. There's a reason for them.
But the single most important factor, the one thing we actually have control over, is how we choose to respond. And in the end, our source leaves us with this powerful idea. Suffering doesn't exist to break us. It's not some cosmic punishment meant to crush our spirits. It's actually a tool for growth. It's an opportunity to learn how to accept, and through that acceptance, to find a really deep and lasting sense of peace.
So after all that, all these different ways of looking at it, they all point to the exact same conclusion. What truly, truly matters is how we respond. The source doesn't really leave us with an answer. It actually leaves us with a question. And it's a question for every single one of us to think about. So, how will you respond?